Hey everyone, I'm Stephen W. Long. This is The Writing Life, and I have to say my guest today has the most impressive CV I've ever seen, I think, and we're going to have some fun talking about that. But Neal Hulkower, we're going to start off with a discussion of your book, Grape Expectations.
Explications.
Explications. Boy, did I get that wrong. And when you told me about this, initially I was thinking, well, I didn't know if it was a novel or what. It's actually a collection, right? Can you kind of start off by saying it's a collection of what?
It's a collection of wine writing that I've done. The earliest piece was from 1973, the most recent 2024. And it ranges from things that I've published in the Oregon Wine Press and other publications. It's got a whole section on book reviews. And then there's no single theme because it is a collection, but there's 8 different parts that collect these essays and reviews. Covers a wide range of topics. I'm a member, amongst other things, of the American Association of Wine Economists. And the irony in the name is that they rarely meet in the United States. They tend to have the meetings all over the world in wine regions. And there were several articles in there about meetings that were held in Argentina, South Africa, Padua, Italy, and so on. There's a section, as I said, on book reviews, a lot of which were published either in the Journal of Wine Economics or the Journal of Wine Research. There's a section on an organization that's very interesting to me called IUVOI. And it was co-founded by somebody I used to work with at White Rose Winery, where I occasionally pour. He was the winemaker. Jesus Guillen, and he and 2 other folks who were Hispanic Americans wanted to do something for vineyard stewards, the folks who actually work the vines, who are essential to making great wine.
Sure.
And they brainstormed and came up with this organization that provides educational opportunities for them. They go for 17 weeks to once a week to Chemeketa College, and they learn about all aspects of the wine industry. So when that notion first came about, Jesus liked my writing and asked me to prepare a piece for the Oregon Wine Press. It was a cover story, and I continued to write for them, about them, publishing the articles in various outlets until I joined the board, and then I handed it off to somebody else. So there's a whole section on that. I had been the field coordinator for the Slow Wine Guide for Willamette Valley, and wrote a couple of articles on that are in there. There were 4 personalities, including Jesus Guillen, who unfortunately died at 38
oh my goodness.
in 1988, 2018, and so he's featured in there. And then there's a whole section called Grape Explications, which contains the piece that I wrote 10 years ago to commemorate writing for the Oregon Wine Press for 5 years. I'm doing another piece for the October issue this year called More Grape Explications, because it's the 15th anniversary. So that's in there, along with various and sundry musings.
But thematically, it's all wine.
It's all, the single thread that goes through it is that there's something about wine in each of the pieces.
Sure.
Having said that, you don't have to be heavily into wine to enjoy it, because there are the profiles of the people, there are book reviews, the essays cover, start from wine, but really talk about various things. So I think the audience certainly should be wine folks, but also folks who just like a good read, as I say.
Yeah, because there's so many approaches to, in a sense, a central topic. I got a kick out of it, but I wanted to ask you about. There's a section titled "The Notebooks," and we're not intimately familiar with each other, but I know you have a sort of a scientific bent, and would that be accurate?
That's very accurate.
Okay. So, and it struck me then, and you had 4 early, I mean, from the early times, right?
Yes.
70s, you were doing that, and there were 4. And it struck me as a kind of a piece of a scientific approach or a calculated approach. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the notebooks?
Sure. I started doing the notebooks, the earliest page in there is from, I think, May 1969,
okay.
And went through 1979. I'd already gotten out of grad school, I think I had my first job and so on, but I just stopped after 1979. 450 entries, about most every bottle of wine that I tasted. Mm-hmm. And the layout of the page is very standard. So I even have a little code in the corner, L, if I save the label. I talk about the name of the wine, the producer, the origin, the date that I tasted it, and then notes. And if I tasted it more than one time, there'll be the date and then more notes. So several wines I've tasted multiple times. I've used that information to write some articles. I'm not sure if there's anything in the book. It's been a while. But one in particular actually became a talk that I gave at the Wine Economist meeting and won me a best presentation.
Oh, great.
It's called What Can I Still Afford to Drink?
Sure.
And what I did is I extracted the information, which, as you pointed out, was very systematically put into the notebooks, put it into a workbook, Excel workbook, and was able to compare, different things. Here's a wild little example that just happened. The other day was the 50th anniversary of the Judgment of Paris tasting that allegedly ranked American wines ahead of French wines. And that occurred during this period when I was tasting wine, and I had one of the spreadsheets in the workbook had a listing by date of all the wines that I had tasted by date, and I decided to just do a quick sort and see how many were from the United States
Sure.
before the tasting and then after. There weren't that many because back in the 70s, it was primarily French and German wines that I was interested in drinking. But there was a distinct increase. Before the Judgment of Paris, there were 7 U.S. wines. After, there were 31.
Oh my gosh.
So I was able to do that quick little sort. Mm-hmm. And I have a list that I send my material out to, and included that sheet so that people could actually see everything I had drunk before and then see the change, the sudden change that the tasting had an impact on.
So when you say change, I've been thinking about when you sample the same thing over multiple times. Mm-hmm. Does that change? Do
Yes.
you get something else out of it?
Yeah.
Okay. So why does it? Did you change? Did the wine change? What's different the second, third time around?
It's a brilliant question, and it's actually both. There's no question. I've been tasting wine seriously for well over 50 years, 55
Right.
years, something
Right.
like that. And my palate's changing. My preferences are changing. I'm getting older. Your equipment changes.
The sensors?
The senses change. Fortunately, my nose is still good. and I trust my nose. So there's certainly your physical impact, you know, and has an impact on how you're reacting to the wine. But wine itself evolves over time.
Right.
And I tend to be very fond of aging my wine. And back then, you could actually purchase old wines for reasonable prices.
Okay.
Stuff that and part of the study, what can I still afford to drink, had to do with what is in fact can I buy now at a reasonable price compared to what I could, 50 years ago.
Sure.
But wine ages, tannins in red wines resolve. There are sweet spots for various wines.
Chronologically?
Yeah.
You mean? Okay.
If you taste, a good rule of thumb, for example, for Oregon Pinot Noir is wait 5 years from the date, 5 to 7 years. Longer, depending on your preferences, on the vintage and so on. But invariably, it will become more interesting because there are chemical changes going on even in the sealed bottle. The tannins bind with the proteins and precipitate out. You develop what they call tertiary notes that are very interesting and add complexity to the drink. So both things are happening. Both you're changing and the circumstances where you're drinking the wine changes. Mm-hmm. It's been demonstrated that the music that's playing, the room that you're in, the company that you're keeping,
Sure.
what you're eating, all impact your reaction to the wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many things I want to talk about, but you lead me to this one. When I read your work and I hear about, you talk about the notes and the subtle tastes and so on, man, I'm not close to that, except I try. And for me, I can drink a beer and it in part slakes my thirst. I drink it because I'm thirsty, or it goes with the meal. To me, wine is a lot of work. and I don't know that I enjoy it like I'm supposed to, or like other people do, certainly not like you do. Going for that, trying to get those things out of it.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for somebody like me?
First of all, not everybody has to be a wine aficionado. It just happens to be where I gravitated. I like beer too. And I can pick up nuances because, again, my nose is good, my palate is still reasonably good. But if you want to enjoy wine, pick something simple that, to start with, and just be mindful as you're drinking. It's really, you don't have to wax eloquent when you taste the wine. You just have to sort of pay attention and note what's going on. I mean, my wife, who I've been married to now for 45 years, when we first got together, wasn't as obsessed with wine as I am.
Mm-hmm. And probably as you were. Even then.
Even then.
Yeah,
oh,
right.
yeah. This is not a new thing with me.
Right.
But I've noticed more and more. She's, when we have wine every night. We drink a glass of wine every night, and she's picking up things. She has an opinion. She
with
notices,
your guidance, I would think.
Yeah.
You kind of, hey, can you taste the oak? I mean, I don't even know what I'm saying, but
right.
That kind of, and then, oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
I try not to tell anybody what they taste because okay. I realize that it's so personal and individual.
Yeah.
But even, for example, we drink half a bottle instead of a full bottle with dinner, which means that it sits overnight, and I want her opinion on how well it held up. You know, that sort of thing. And her opinion is sound and good and valuable.
Yeah.
We also understand, I mean, she doesn't have as good or attentive sense of smell as I do.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll pick up things that she doesn't, and that's fine. There's no, the real problem with wine culture in the United States is that folks tend to be intimidated by it. And as we tell folks in the tasting room where I work, there's only one thing that matters. Do you like it or don't you? And the rest of it is, you know, if you're obsessed with it like I am, the rest of it is non-essential. It's, you know, it gives us wine geeks something to talk about or brag about. Oh, we had this fabulous bottle and you didn't. We don't do that too much, but we don't. That's
You
me.
save that.
Yeah, we don't do that. But in terms of just sheer enjoyment, there are wines that are out there that don't cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
That you can get. You can get your thirst quenched with, you know, a cold white wine, a crisp Chablis or something like that would be, you know, good at that. And if that's all you require, then you're there. It's not, you know, it's not important necessarily for you to
A different level.
yeah, and certainly don't feel bad about it. That's the worst thing. I mean, there are lots and lots of things out there that people get obsessed with. You know, we were talking about typewriters before. Right. There are folks who collect typewriters. I don't, and I use a word processor. But if that's your thing, I'm sure you have all kinds of interesting discussions about vintage typewriters and this and that, and that's fine. It's the same with wine, only wine is more out there than, say, vintage typewriters.
Sure.
And so folks feel awkward sometimes or uneasy about how to approach the subject. Really just approach it like you would anything else, and don't let anybody tell you what to drink or like. I mean, you can seek advice, and plenty of people will give it to you, but...
Sure. Well, so I want to touch on this.
Yeah.
Knowing that we were going to talk, the other day I was listening to the radio, and there was a segment on NPR, and it had to do with a fellow who was had been suffering PTSD, and one of the recommendations to address this was, if I am saying this right, mindfulness tasting. Now his, not venue, his subject was whiskey, but I think that's probably irrelevant. And he would do like you're doing, or that you do, and that is, in a sense, break it down. Oh, you know, I can taste this and that. And it struck me that there's a similarity, that there's a connection there.
No question.
Mindfulness tasting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A piece that I have in there, I think, is In Search of Elegance. And I talk about when you find a wine that is elegant, one of the things it does is it grabs your attention.
Okay.
It leads you to mindfulness. And certainly whiskeys can be complicated. I've had fabulous single barrel scotches that were enormously complicated and rare. You know, one barrel to the next is different. So, you know.
Right.
But my thing is wine, and when I taste, even if I'm drinking a relatively modest wine, I still pay attention to it because they can surprise you. Okay.
Again, I heard this. I'm going to try it out on you.
Sure.
You don't scold me. I heard about, I don't know if to call it an experiment, an exercise or something. I don't even know that it's true. But I'll tell you what I heard. and that is a sommelier gathered, I think it was 5 wines, eliminated the label, you know, and called in a group of knowledgeable people to taste these. He set them up. The only information was the price. And maybe not surprisingly, all of this group ranked them. The most expensive was the best and on down.
Mm-hmm.
The caveat is that the most expensive wine that ranked first was the same wine that he labeled as least expensive, and it was judged last. Is there any validity to that?
Yeah.
Are we influenced by that?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, no question. I know about that experiment.
Okay, okay.
It's
You saved me.
Yeah, yeah. That's why a lot of these competitions are done blind, where you have no information.
Right, right.
They even do competitions now in black glasses, so you can't see the color of the wine.
Oh my goodness, okay.
Yeah.
It's like behind the curtain.
Yeah, basically behind
Yeah.
the curtain, making it as anonymous as possible, and all you do is your senses, taste, smell, are all you have to try to figure out what this is. I'm pretty awful at blind tastings. I can be fooled easily. But the other thing too is that price is not necessarily an indication of quality in wine. It indicates a bunch of other things, including rarity, reputation, secondary market pumping things up, and there are all kinds of stories.
Could it be, and I'm thinking this honestly, somebody locally, positioning in the market? In other words,
Sure.
And I wanted to say, I owned a manufacturing business, and when we priced our products, that was a reflection of what does it cost to make it. I mean, the real cost, and then the competition. So if it cost me $1 and there was no competition, maybe I could charge $5. I mean, I'm totally making this up. But if somebody else made a similar thing and they were $3, I couldn't be very much more than $3. So in the price of wine, I know that there's some cost involved, but it sounds like there's, or I'm assuming that there's more to that. Maybe batch size, maybe, because there's certainly competition, but positioning. You know, we want to position ourselves as the superior product.
Right.
And does that
There's
go on?
a lot of that.
Oh, okay.
You've heard of Veblen goods, Thor Veblen. He was an economist. A Veblen good is something that it doesn't follow the normal supply and demand kind of thing. You actually create a demand for it because the price is higher. Happens all the time with wine.
Rolls-Royce does that.
I'm sorry?
Rolls-Royce is an example of that.
Yeah, yeah. So you shift that over to high-end wines,
Sure.
and that's certainly the case.
Okay.
There is, I mean, the winery I work for has limited production. You know, they do bottlings that are maybe 200 cases. Okay, so there's a rarity that can influence the price. But if nobody's buying it, if you haven't generated demand for it, it's not going to sell.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's, you know, perfectly good wines that sell considerably less, but they're made in quantity.
Sure.
You know, but yeah, you can create an aura, a brand aura that then allows you to charge luxury prices for things, and that's in spades in wine.
Yeah. Neal, I'm going to, we're going to run out of time, and I have really so much to talk to you about. But can I, well, two things. Can I shift gears and just ask you almost a yes or no question? Do you have an association with music in any way? Are you a musician? Do you write music?
I played piano for a while. I
Okay.
love music, but I haven't written
Okay.
or played it professionally. Or
The
anything.
reason that I ask that is I think music is math, and I know that your association with math. Okay, so in the couple minutes we've got left, I'm going to really throw you a softball. Okay, and you can just wrap this up real quick. I know you've written about the three-body problem. Can you tell us in a couple of minutes what that's all about?
Sure, sure, absolutely. The three-body problem is the mathematical abstraction of determining the position and velocity of the sun, moon, and earth. It's a problem from mathematical astronomy. Celestial mechanics is the name. So the way you abstract something is you take away the name, and instead of saying, oh, the earth weighs so many billion tons and so on, you just call it M, the mass, M sub E or M1. Same for the moon, same for the sun. There's Newton's laws, which most people learn when they take science. From Newton's laws, you can write down what's called the equations of motion, that will describe the position and velocity of each of those three bodies, which no longer have a name. The problem with that is that the equations can't be solved in closed form. You can if it's two bodies, but you can't. The minute you start adding bodies, you can write down the equations, but there's no what's called closed form solution for it. So my dissertation was called the zero energy three-body problem. That's the case where the constant, the energy of the system is exactly zero. And I looked at refining what kind of behavior you can have for those three bodies if you restrict the energy to equal zero. It turns out there's only certain kinds of motion that can occur. The problem I solved was 90 years old. Somebody had speculated what it might be, but I actually proved it.
Yeah.
There's also the case when the energy is positive, in which case the system can fall apart, or when it's negative, in which case
collapse.
It's bound,
Yeah.
or can collapse, but typically bound. It's also the name of a science fiction book that was made into a Netflix series.
Well, I thought I heard that term.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's how you heard it. Interestingly enough, and I point this out to folks, the problem that's actually dealt with in the books, which I read, of course, it turns out to be what's called a restricted four-body problem, because he looked at three suns and a planet, and that's actually four bodies. And because the planet's mass is much less than the masses of the three suns, you can actually regard it as being zero when you're doing it. There's a restricted three-body problem that's been solved. And I could give, there are books written on this stuff. So yeah.
We kind of got off of wine there.
Yeah.
I just so much appreciate this. We've only got a couple of seconds, so I'll call it a day. But thank you so much. This was so interesting to me. And in fact, can you give folks your website?
Yes.
And I know Mike's going to add that to the screen later on.
Okay. I'm on LinkedIn. You can go on LinkedIn. Also, if you go to Luminary Press, who actually published the book,
sure,
I have an author's page on there. So I don't have the URL right now off the top of my head, but there are multiple ways of finding out about it. The book is also available at Third Street Books.
Sure,
you can get it on Amazon. All the usual ways.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. This was terrific.
Pleasure.
And folks, thanks for tuning in. Personal note, I guess, this today as an example of all of the interviews have been so much fun for me, and I just look forward to doing it some more. So we'll see you next time on The Writing Life. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Sure.